I had never seen an airplane before, yet I was curious about how it could hang suspended in the sky, like a bird. Welcome to the Alpha's Love channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Chapter 30, in which it's Goodbye Airplane. I had never seen one before, yet I had heard of the strange object that was able to hang suspended within the sky, like a bird. I had read books and manuals about them, the engines in different parts, trying to discern what exactly held it up. Now that I was seeing one in real life though, with my own eyes, it suddenly became very painful for me to recall all the logical information that I had learned. It won't fall, I reasoned to myself. Just to be sure though, I went to the pilot and asked very politely if I could walk around. Alto had laughed at this, but he felt my anxiety and let me go ahead. The pilot, strangely protective of his plane, let me check the logbooks. Fuel answered without hesitation the weather forecast for our destination. Some small remote place in Europe. I shivered at the idea of going to a different continent. I knew part of me was delaying the inevitable as I insisted upon checking the plane. Alto watched all of this, trying his best to soothe my mind. I felt skittish, nervous. He also felt uneasy. I knew he was trying to hide it, but his feelings through the bond could not contain themselves from me. We had not yet mastered the art of concealment from each other. He wanted to know what his father had really told me. I wanted to tell him. I felt it on the tip of my tongue, but every time I worked up the courage to speak, my mouth shut. Like an involuntary motion, I could not say the words nor think them within Alto's presence. Just like the king had said, some small part of me was relieved that the secret was safe. Another was dying that I even had a secret to hide from Alto. Not but 2 months into our relationship and we were already lying and hiding things from each other. I thought back to those sweet first weeks. How easy it had seemed. We were both entranced with the idea of each other and the thought of a life mate. I remembered our dance at the Blue Moon ceremony. That was probably my favorite memory of us. The time to say goodbye. Jane and Lizzie waited on the plane while Alto and I stood near the steps. The scene reminded me of one of the cheesy romance movies Lizzie sometimes was able to force me to watch. I wrapped my arms around him, completing the picture of the romance movie sequence. "Why can't you go with us?" I whispered. "I want to. But I don't think I'll be able to leave if I'm there. I won't have a good enough excuse to go back." I nodded. It made some part of me angry that he was leaving me alone, but another part understood how hard it was upon both our ends. I leaned forward as he met me. Who knew when the next time we kissed would be? "Don't forget to write," I gasped as I started to pull away. "I won't." I clenched my teeth as I saw and felt the pain within his eyes. "I love you, Fayette." I froze upon the steps of the plane, looking down at him. His eyes were sure and meant every word. "I love you, Alto." I choked back the sob that was about to escape. His breath hitched and I saw his foot about to ascend the stairs. I felt his intention to reach for me, grab me and pull me away. To hide me within the castle and to never let me go. His dominant wolf howled inside, surfacing and letting me meet him for the first time. He howled in pain at the idea of letting me go voluntarily. He could protect me, his eyes said. "Goodbye," I whispered hurriedly, knowing if I didn't leave soon we would never depart and would end up with Alto kidnapping me altogether. The doors began to close, and I watched from the window as Alto shook with uncontrollable rage and sorrow, his wolf surfacing out. I saw in the distance the black form of what looked to be some animal, running after the flying plane, no hope of catching up to it. Over the roar of the engine, I thought I heard the unmistakable howl of a wolf, crying his despair and sorrow over and over for the world to hear. Chapter 31, in which I run. I think everyone has a different coping mechanism whenever they arrive at a new place. Some familiarize themselves with the layout, trying their best to store and know everything about where they are. Others think it's about the people. That if you make new friends or have people you can talk to and trust, that the newness of the place doesn't seem as bad. For me, it was routine. I needed a routine. I needed to know what I was getting up in the morning, what I was going to wear, where I was going to eat breakfast and what I was going to eat. I needed to know the places I would be going to and the people I would most likely be seeing. I needed routine. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, structure, and that's exactly what the Academy provided. They had a time for everything. They had good food. It was standard and most of the time the same, but it was good. They had uniforms, allowing for me to not have the worry of what to choose from to wear and instead blend in with the other students that were attending. And they had classes that were routine and scheduled and each had a time slot. I quickly adjusted to my new life and found that what I dreaded was actually not that bad. I even along the way found some A's. That is what they called them at the Academy. Because here you did not make friends. Here you kept in mind that any sort of bond you formed with the others would one day either help you in your political rule. That was a boring lesson, Yasmin said. I looked up from my textbook to glance at her. She and her twin, Jasmine, were inseparable and had quickly adopted me into their small group. I thought so also, Jasmine said. I had been scared of the twins at first when they approached me. Flashbacks to Estella and Anna, Lee's treatment of me had me wary of them and why they wanted to be close. But they had only been curious. They wanted to know more about me. And as we started talking and figuring each other out, I realized that I enjoyed their company. Stop reading for a sec and Faye and join our conversation, Yasmin said. I closed my textbook about chemical compounds and glared at her. I'm trying to learn. Yasmin rolled her eyes. Please, I think after watching you read the whole library's worth on chemicals and other whatnot stuff, you're an expert in it now. I pressed my lips into a strained line. They didn't know the real reason why I poured myself over textbooks and hid away during the weekends. I was still looking for the king's solution. For months in and I had nothing. What is it? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Sighing and feeling a slight sense of panic that I wasn't reading. I was just commenting on how juicy Lord Julian looked today, Yasmin said, laughing as she rubbed her hands together. I shook my head in mild disgust. Yasmin, you're engaged to Prince Elric. A fact I seem to have to remind her every day of. Elric. Here Yasmin sighed and looked up at the sky. If that man wrote even one sentence worth of what your prince did then, I would show him some devotion. I blushed at this. Every week Helter sent a new letter in response to my own. It was one of Yasmin's and Jasmine's favorite thing. I jokingly warned Alto that if he didn't let up on his pretty words, I would have competition. I tried to hide the letters from them, saying they were private, but the sisters ignored my request and read them anyway, finding them stashed and hidden away. Alto didn't seem to mind, and sometimes even found it enjoyable that someone else was able to read his love for me. We sat in silence for a while, each lost in our own thoughts. Taking note that the conversation seemed to be over, I reopened my textbook and continued searching. Several more minutes passed before Jasmine reminded me of the time. Waving goodbye to the sisters, I rounded the corner, heading to my next lesson. Some students who knew my name greeted me as I walked. I waved to say hi back. I entered the room, dropping my bag and the heavy textbooks it held within it. I sighed in relief as the strain of the weight left my shoulders. Come in, Fayette, I heard a voice say. Walking further in, I found Lady Cora sitting at her desk. The former queen. It took me several weeks to figure out who she really was. Most students had a vague idea but didn't know for sure if she was the former Scorn Queen. She kept lessons strictly professional, and never delved into her personal life. The only time I heard her speak of her former life was when she found out I was Alto's life mate. I dearly loved that boy, before closing herself off again. After that encounter though, I found that she was kinder towards me than to other students. I sat down on the other side of her and began answering the worksheet. Simple questions in etiquette. She broke the silence. I'm sorry for interrupting, Fayette, but you do not look well. I paused in my writing to look up. Her eyes were filled with motherly concern as she stared at me. Have you been sleeping enough? You look tired. I sighed deeply. The strain of school work and trying to fill out the king's request had taken a toll on my body. I was thinner than even when I was an Omega. I rarely slept. I thought that after 2 months I would have found something, some small clue. But when the 3rd month came and nothing had surfaced, I became borderline obsessed. The signs of my desperation were starting to surface and show. The twins were trying to get me out more, monitoring what I ate, when I slept. Yasmin even threatened to send a message to Alto telling him my state if I didn't start doing something. I'm fine, Lady Cora, I politely said. It ruffled me that she was taking note in my appearance. I would have to put on more blush and maybe some lipstick to get people's attention away from the dark circles I could no longer conceal. I only worry about your health, she answered, with equal politeness. I nodded and continued in my work, but felt her eyes burning into me as she watched my painful movements. Perhaps because you have been away from your life mate for too long. I looked up in confusion but grabbed at the excuse. That may be the reason, Lady Cora. She nodded with sad eyes. It is hard. If there is anything I can do, please let me know. I tossed her words around within my head. My curiosity won out in the end as I quietly said, Lady Cora, could it be that you know about the life mates bond? Her eyes lit with surprised confusion as she assessed me. I thought you already knew. I shook my head slowly, not sure I could handle any more new information. I guess the rumor remains that I was banished because of adultery. You weren't. I quickly gasped and held my hand to my mouth. Forgive me, Lady Cora. I did not mean to pry. A small smile played on her lips. You are forgiven, Fayette. No, I was married to the king, but while I was queen, a guest came to the palace. I realized as I greeted and welcomed him that he was my life mate. It is the law that you cannot keep a life mate from another, even if you are already married. So the king had no choice but to let me go. However, some of the court gossip started swirling around that I was banished because I had been with another man, since they saw me divorce and leave with another. Here Lady Cora sighed. I guess the king made no effort to clear my name within his courts. He was very upset that something of his had been taken away. I frowned at the idea that the whole kingdom had the wrong information about Lady Cora. If they knew the truth that she had left because she met her true mate, then she would have much more sympathy. As of now, though, her name was rarely spoken of in court, and if it was done so in disgust and with mockery. I am sorry, Lady Cora, that I believed the rumors and lies. I bowed my head slightly and rose to see Lady Cora shrug. I am happy here, teaching young royals the life of what to expect in a palace. The king at least provided me with this since I have some experience as a queen. I smiled at this. I know the strain that can take on your body when your life mate is away, Fayette, Lady Cora said, changing topics suddenly. Perhaps Prince August can come and visit. I shook my head before she was even done now. I do not want him to be concerned about my appearance. Lady Cora held her tongue after that. I could feel the burning questions behind her, now that she had revealed her truth to me. She had opened herself up, but I had not done the same. It left some awkwardness in the room. As I finished the last page and had Lady Cora check on it, I quickly glanced at a nearby clock. I could eat for maybe 10 minutes and then head to the lab. I had no more lessons for the day and had finished most of my work yesterday and this morning. Done, all correct, Fayette. Lady Cora nodded in approval as I grabbed my bags hurriedly and waved goodbye. I'll see you next week. I called out. I had been taught not to run, that running was improper. That to your subjects who watched, if you ran they themselves were pressed with the issue that something was wrong. And you were never supposed to let them know something was wrong. But I ran. Jasmine and Yasmin were sitting at our usual table. Two new boys perching next to a flirting Yasmin as Jasmine quietly read and filled out homework. Fayette, Yasmin called out, causing Jasmine to raise her head and give a relieved sigh. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Jasmine pushed a tray towards me. Thanks. I quickly ate, practically shoving the food down my throat. Who? Look at her go, one of the boys chuckled, nudging his companion. Yasmin turned to them and growled, letting her canines descend. Scram, she growled out. They quickly got up, casting confused looks at her sudden mood change. You really shouldn't be flirting when you're engaged, I said, in between bites. Yasmin sighed and leaned back. We all can't have the perfect bond, like you, Fayette. Jasmine shrugged silently. Have you heard from Derek? Yasmin suddenly asked her sister, directing the conversation away from her. Jasmine looked up and shook her head. He is still in South America, she whispered. I nodded in sympathy at Jasmine. She was not marrying a prince like her sister, but instead his beta. The two could not bear to be apart, so their father had arranged an alpha-beta marriage. Derek, though, was an explorer and had, according to Yasmin and Jasmine, looked at Jasmine, smelled her neck, then nodded his head saying, she'll do, before heading out to explore the jungles of South America. He had been there now for almost a year, and Jasmine still had yet to hear one word from him. Honestly, men, Yasmin said, rolling her eyes. Jasmine silently nodded her head in agreement. I finished my food then, pushing back my chair. I felt eyes watching me and looked up to see a concerned Lady Cora, who had just arrived. She sat down at the head table that was placed in the front of the room. All the teachers and leaders of authority who visited were placed there. She's getting on my last nerves, I muttered under my breath to the twins. They quickly darted their eyes to Lady Cora, then back to me. She's noticing that you're looking like a living skeleton, Yasmin said, not very hard to hide. I scowled at them as they grinned back. At least you ate all your food this time, Jasmine said, taking my empty tray and placing it under hers. Thanks, Jasmine. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I nodded to Yasmin and then left. The labs were in another building, one that was more secluded and far out of reach from the main campus. I had quickly found a lab in the beginning few weeks that no one used, where I had set up my work. It was the weekend now. I had some food in my bag, and already had a mat and some blankets and pillows placed within the room. This was what my week's end had come to. I desperately tried to finish my schedule and clear my weekends so that I could devote my whole time to my work. Opening the room and locking it behind me, I placed my bag down and inspected the liquid that had been on low flames all day. I tied my hair back, already bracing myself for the long hours of work. Chapter the Tito in which darkness consumes it had been a miracle, an accident. My shaking hand had slipped and poured almost all the contents within the liquid. And to my amazement the dark purple turned into clear liquid. I quickly took note of how much had been accidentally dropped in, before repeating the process. It took almost all night before I had the same solution correctly under the flames. And then the miracle happened again. The liquid turned clear. I felt tears in my eyes as I looked at the 2 vials that held the clear liquids within them. There was only one way to test it now. I had no real test subjects. I refused to use it on innocent creatures, and I did not have my father I did last time. As much as I hated to admit it, he had been my guinea pig of sorts. I used part of the first products of X, Bane on him. The first time I used it, he clung to his head for the rest of the day. 2 weeks later, I gained 2 minutes of my father back. A month later, I added 3 more minutes. And then 2 months after resulted in the final product of what X, Bane was today. I shivered at what this might do to me, for I was crazy enough to use myself. Should I write a note? I had found that I couldn't even write my secret on paper. I had sat countless nights, sweating and swearing over my letters to Alto, trying to put into words what his father was making me do, but I could not. The commands of my true alpha, the king, were too strong. I wrote upon a piece of scratch paper. To whomever reads, ask the king. Fayette, I nodded in satisfaction. I really was losing my mind. I looked at the clear liquid and without another second thought tipped it over, pouring the contents into my mouth. I choked on it as it burned down my throat. It was vile, disgusting. A few minutes later, I started shivering violently. I felt myself heave, but I forced my hand over my mouth. You will not throw up, I commanded myself. The shivering continued until I realized that it was a different shiver. I had felt this before. Sweat trickled down my back as I realized what was about to happen. I clenched my teeth down in pain, grabbing my jacket and rolling up the sleeve. I put the clothing in my mouth so I wouldn't bite my tongue. It was happening. I was transforming. Somehow the experiment was making me turn into my wolf. Something I had not done since I was 14 years old. My bones broke apart, snapping to realign themselves together. Tears fell from my eyes as I fell onto the mat. My body contorted and twisted. I screamed, but the cloth inside my mouth muffled it. It was too painful. Too painful. How did others do this? How did Yasmin and Jasmine manage to handle this pain as they transformed? I had seen them in practice. It took them about a minute or less, but they were both gifted warriors. I was not. I had not yet been able to shift on my own. I smelled blood and realized that I had been scratching my face. The pain too much as the fangs and whiskers came. Blackout. I screamed in my mind. Blackout from the pain. But I didn't. 30 minutes later. An hour. I had lost track of the time. I laid still as the pain gradually stopped. I looked at my paws and felt the uncomfortable weight of my tail behind me. Other than that, though, I could not move. My whole body hurt. I felt tears come down my face, catching within my third of transforming back. I didn't want to. I would rather stay as a wolf forever than experience that pain again. The sudden realization came back to me as I remembered why I was doing this in the first place. Aggravain. I had thought in the beginning that I would combine the two of the king's request. I would create a solution that not only nulled out the effects of Aggravain, but also of humans turning into wolves. I figured since I was already a werewolf, there was nothing for me to X out. But panic seeped into my mind. Did I cut out the human side to me? I quickly slapped away the notion, thinking it impossible since I was a wolf yet thinking like a human. I would have to test and see if my solution had worked by doing the only thing possible, Aggravain. I had some, knowing that this time would eventually come. I turned over onto my stomach. I couldn't manage to stand, my legs too shaky and weak. Instead I crawled, a small shuffle on my belly, until I reached my bag. Opening the flap with my nose, I moved around inside before I smelled it. The small package. I felt the weight on my chest and looked down to see the necklace the king had given me was still there. I took a moment to be grateful that it had a long chain, long enough to not choke me since I was bigger in this form. Tentatively, I took a small lick from the bag. The taste of aggravain filled within my senses, and I vaguely registered that I had tasted this before. I laid down then. Aggravain did not strike suddenly. Depending on the dosage I took, it would probably be another 2 hours before I could tell if it had worked or not. I glanced at the clock. 2 more hours. I sighed and put my head down. The pain had left me exhausted. I drifted off to sleep, letting the darkness take away my worries. Only 2 things would happen now. Either I eventually woke, or the darkness stayed. Chapter 33, in which I rise, I woke with a start. It was dark outside and I heard shuffling and the sound of something sniffing behind the door. Is she behind there? There was a low whining sound, and a scratch on the door. I knew from the smell it was a wolf and another person. I was too numb though to register who. It didn't work. I thought through the thick cloud. The solution didn't work. I did not know what was going on, or I could not move my body. I felt my eyelids able to open and close and my eyes could run the room and look, but I could not move. I couldn't feel my body, like there was nothing attached to me but my soul and mind. There was a loud banging on the door as swearing issued forth. Damn, it's locked. A few minutes later I heard a loud clicking noise and the sound of 2 people walking in. Thea. My eyes flickered up and saw Jasmine and Yasmin. Yasmin rushed forward, her hands hovering over me in worry. What's wrong? Thea. Jasmine looked around the room before walking towards us. She needs medical attention, she whispered to her sister as she looked down at me. I'm not sure if we can move her though. Tentatively, Jasmine started to poke at various places around my body. She glanced at me, telling me to whine or yelp if I hurt anywhere. I could not tell her that I didn't even feel her hands. I think we can carry her, Jasmine said, urgency now in her voice. We'll have to both do it. Why can't we call someone here? Yasmin said. Look around, Yasmin. Jasmine hissed. This is her secret. This is where she's been going to all these weekends. She doesn't want anyone to know. There is a reason for that. We need to hurry and lift her. Both of the girls struggled to pick up my wolf. I hung limply in their arms. What's wrong with her? Yasmin said, fear clear in her voice. Jasmine bent down, letting Yasmin struggle alone with my weight. She looked through my bag with urgency before pulling out my small bag of aggravain. Giving the contents inside a small sniff, Jasmine quickly pulled back and gagged. It's aggravain. I've been exposed. We need to get to medical. She's been poisoned, and now I've been also. Jasmine sealed the bag away and placed it back in my bag. She helped grab some of my weight from her sister as they both rushed me out. Yasmin let go and quickly locked the door behind her. Let's go. The science building was far off from campus, and I could hear their strained breaths as they struggled to carry me. They were already strong from their werewolf genes and training, but carrying a full-grown wolf, who was completely limp and holding none of her weight, was something else. Finally we reached the medical wing. Help! Yasmin yelled. The night staff rushed forward and assessed the situation. Several people quickly pulled a rolling bed and urged the twins to set me down on it. We found her. I think she's been poisoned to aggravain and left without treatment for a long time. Yasmin spoke up. There was some poison left on her and my sister was exposed. Please help her also. The staff nodded and one man stepped forward and took Jasmine aside. The medical team on me quickly checked my vitals. Why is she in her wolf? These tests are showing it's been in her system for almost 6 hours. That's impossible. She should be dead. I felt a drum of pleasure in my mind. My experiment had resulted in small success. They pricked me, shooting me up with something that made my eyes drop and lose focus. I felt the world turn black once again as they rushed me down a hallway. Chapter 34, in which I go. I didn't come this far to only come this far. I woke up to the familiar sound of beeping. The pressure of air in my nose filled me once more. Only this time I wasn't human. And Alto was not beside me. I was alone. There was no one in my medical room to greet me as I woke. I laid there and assessed my body and the damage. I could move my legs. My ears twitched and my tail flopped. I could move. A low whine filled the back of my throat as I rejoiced at the sensation of feeling that had returned to me. It wasn't until 2 hours later that a doctor and Yasmin finally came in. "Afternoon, Fayette," the doctor said, smiling down at me. I looked up at him and glanced at Yasmin. She gave me a small comforting smile. "Fayette, I know this is sudden, but I need you to transform back. I need to make sure everything is okay." I looked up at the doctor with pleading eyes. Part of me was dying on the inside at the thought of transforming back. Another part of me was confused on how to even go about it. "She doesn't know how," Yasmin said, somehow able to read the worry in my eyes. "She probably transformed as a defense against the poison." The doctor nodded his head slowly. "In that case, Fayette, I will have to give you a drug that will force you to transform. Would you like to be under while it happens?" This doctor knew all too well my thoughts. I whined softly in the back of my throat. The doctor smiled and stepped forward, adjusting the tubing on a machine to make clear liquid go into me faster. A few minutes later, I felt the drowsy effect of the drug enter me. My eyes slowly found Yasmin. I wanted to ask her how Jasmine was, but I could wait until actual words could be said. I woke up much the same as how I did last time. Alone and with no accompaniment other than the machine's noise. I sighed and looked around. I froze at what I saw. Thursday. It was Thursday. I scrambled in my mind to count back the day. I had taken the poison on Saturday. The days that had flown by baffled me. I had wasted so much time. I looked at my legs and slowly placed them over the side. Fayette. I talked to myself, willing my inner side to become stronger. You have to pull yourself together and get this done. Act strong. Act tough. Be the sun. You can do this. I saw some clothes on the side and pulled them on. It hurt every time I moved. I opened the door and walked out. Of course it wouldn't be that simple that no one would notice me. Hey, the same doctor I had seen earlier rushed towards me, grabbing my hand. It took all my effort to not wince at the pain that shot down me. "What are you doing?" "Lay back down." I smiled up at him and took a step back. I'm actually feeling a lot better. To demonstrate this point, height whirled around and jumped. He looked at me with calculating eyes, trying to decide if I was lying or not. "You shouldn't push it. I'm missing school and I feel okay. Can you please just let me out?" I tried for Winnie now. He sighed and grabbed my arms, feeling them. It took all my effort to not scream in pain. "I guess. You are okay." He looked at me in disbelief. Any normal person should be in there for weeks. I just smiled. I knew this because it was not the first time I was poisoned. This told me that some small part of my experiment had given me a resistant to the aggravain. "Can I ask what you use to help aggravain poisoning?" The doctor nodded and said, "Nicomai." Nicomai. I tossed the word around in my mind before smiling at the doctor again. "All right, thanks." He watched me as I walked down the hall and out the doors. It was getting darker outside, the sun already going down. I sighed in frustration. I had been so close. I had a paved road now, though. The first few sets laid out in front of me. I wasn't grasping at thin air or explainable things. I had a solution now. All I needed would be to keep at it and improve it slowly. The first thing I needed to do, though, was get some Nicomai. Chapter 35, in which I smile. Close your eyes and picture the sun. That's what it feels like to love her. I went back to the science department. Back to my lab. I was obsessed. I went to unlock the door, but found it already unlocked. Panicking, I threw open the door, looking wildly into the room. Jasmine and Yasmin were sitting there, staring at my instruments. but making no moves to touch or interfere with them. They jumped up at the sight of me. "Thea," Yasmin said, her voice high-pitched and strained. "What are you doing here? Why are you not laying down?" I shook my head and went over to my instruments. I assessed them, making sure each was in their proper place. "Thea," Yasmin said, her voice becoming more worried. "Thea, look at us. You didn't touch anything, did you? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." My voice was panicked and shaking. "You didn't mess with anything, did you? Did you touch this?" "No, Fayette, we didn't." Jasmine stood up, her hands raised calmly. "Calm down, Fayette. We didn't touch anything." I felt a sigh of relief leave me. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm," Yasmin said. She and her wing came closer, cornering me now. I shook my head. I can't tell you." "What's this then?" Jasmine held up a small piece of paper. On it were my scratched-in words. "To whomever reads, ask the king. Say I." I felt myself deflate as the twins' eyes tore into me and my secret. "Your king ordered you to do something, didn't he?" Jasmine asked. I couldn't even nod my head to confirm their thoughts. I tried to communicate with my eyes. Jasmine nodded. "He threatened you." I looked up, then back at them, my eyes silently nodding my answer. "And you can't tell us because he ordered you not to tell." I wanted to weep at how accurate Jasmine was, how clever she was. They watched as the tears silently fell down my face. "Oh, Fayette," Yasmin said. Both sisters came forward and wrapped me within their embrace, whispering soft words of comfort as I cried into them. The secret had been such a heavy load. It had ripped me apart inside that I could not tell Alto. I felt some of the pain lessen now that someone else had a small clue of the burden I carried. We stayed like that for some time before I pulled away. "I have to work. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." My throat raw from tears. "Thea, let us help you." I shook my head at their request. "I have to do this alone." "We'll be waiting at the dorms then," Yasmin warned. "I expect to see you there by 10 at the latest. Otherwise Jasmine and I are coming to drag you out." I nodded and waved them away. I mixed different solutions and went over every detail of what could have gone wrong with the clear liquid. When it became near 10, I started my walk back to the dorms. I collapsed on the bed once I reached it. Yasmin and Jasmine had quickly moved us all in a more spacious dorm near the first month so we could all be together. I laughed when I saw a bunk bed being carried in, but the twins were very serious. "We've never slept apart," Yasmin said, her eyes shining with an unspoken threat. Now they were watching me from their same bunks, Yasmin peering down from the top while Jasmine closed her book she was reading at the bottom. "There is a phone call for you." I stiffened at the words. Only one person would want to call me. "Right now?" Yasmin nodded and pulled out a phone. "He's waited for 5 minutes now. Told me he would rip my tongue out if I hung up." I looked at Yasmin questioningly, wondering if I was thinking of the correct person. "Hello?" "Fayette." I exhaled a sharp gasp of air, suddenly punched in the stomach and unable to breathe out. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Fayette. Silence hung between us as I absorbed his breathing on the other end. I closed my eyes, becoming painfully aware of the twins' eyes on me. "Fayette, I received a call that you were injured." His voice sounded strained, not the usual blank tone that he held whenever he talked. "I was sick for a while." "You were poisoned." I fell down on my bed as I curled up around a pillow, turning my back to the twins. It was mild. The doctor did not say so. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I was in disbelief at the way the conversation was turning. No, I missed you. I love you, it's good to hear your voice again. They said you had been found outside the science department. In your wolfung, the poison in your system for almost 6 hours. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. That is true. Explain to me, Fayette, how no one heard you. What? No one heard you? You've only shifted 2 times in your life. Now 3. You must have screamed. You must have been in pain. So why did no one hear? And then why? My eyes were dazed as he continued talking. Explain to me why you were not found lying outside a populated building for 6 hours. I felt a tear roll down my face. A pain began to rise within my chest. I was found. Didn't they tell you that Yasmin found me? Yes. But then it occurred to me, why did they take you all the way to the medical wing? It's a long walk there, Fayette. Why did they move you? Why didn't they call help? Why didn't they get someone to help them carry you? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Panicked. It was all they thought of in the moment. There was silence on the other end as a low, soft growl was heard from alto. Your lie. I sobbed into the phone. I felt Yasmin and Jasmine's hands on my back, rubbing soft comforting circles as the other stroked my hair. Why are you lying to me, Fayette? I choked out in between sobs, my heart breaking as even then I lied to cover up my lies. Why are you lying to me, Fayette? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I couldn't control my sobbing. It occurred to me that me crying was just another clue to Alto that something was up. Alto, please trust me. Please. Wyatt, as all I ask of you, Alto, I ask that you trust me. Please, I love you. I don't want to hurt you. I would never voluntarily hurt you. Please. The words cut through me like an ice dagger to my heart. I've heard enough of your lies, Fayette. You lie in your letters. Don't think I haven't noticed. And then my men tell me you are not eating. You are not sleeping. You are sneaking away during the weekends. You go somewhere. And now you've been poisoned. But you won't tell me the truth. Your men. I questioned. A humorless chuckle was heard from the other end. You really didn't think I would let you without having someone watch you. I felt panic surface within me. The only thing is my men can't tell me where you go on the weekend. My men should have seen you and rescued you the moment they saw you weak and poisoned on the campus grounds. The only problem is they didn't. I felt numbness curl into me as I realized that Alto had trapped me in my own lies. I had admitted to it when he knew already and had proof that it never happened. He would make a great king. Where do you go, Fayette? The question rang within the air as I heard his voice break. Do not say you love me when you are seeing someone else. I sat up then, suddenly and with all sorrow gone, seeing someone. You are meeting with someone in the science building. I know it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'm meeting with no one. I love no one but you. I want you, I want no one else. How can you have so little trust in me? My men see it. They see you go there. I heard the sorrow within his voice, the acceptance that I had cast him aside for another. But in the moment I felt like I was about to tear the phone apart. I had too much on my plate to deal with a jealous wolf who was pointing fingers at me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What must I do to remind you? I said softly. Fayette, I just want to know why. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Let me tell you something. There was silence and I knew he was bracing himself for it, setting up a wall within his heart for my next words. You're all my heart talks about, Alto. I would choose you above anyone else. I would choose you in 100 lifetimes, in 100 worlds, in any version of reality. I'd find you and I'd choose you over and over. I could have every inch of your body pressed to mine and I would say, pull me closer. He took a shuddering breath as I continued, pressing on with whatever form of poetry I could to console his wounded mind. You are my sunshine. You are my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are grey. You'll never know. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. How much I love you. There was silence on the other end as I waited for Alto to respond. Tiring without you. It's been harder than I thought it would be, Fayette. I take a shaky breath as he continues. I have doubts and questions. Agony that I can't keep you safe. Who are you talking to? Are you missing me? Do you want me still? Do you even remember me, or has someone better come to claim you? Never. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. No one could ever claim me but you. Alto gave a small laugh. I'm sorry for my outburst. I sighed into the phone. I'm coming. Wait, what? I can't bear to be apart from you anymore. And I need you safe. You're my sunshine, Fayette. I'm tired of these grey days. I smiled into the phone. I'll leave in 3 days. I don't care if Father says no. I'm coming. I want to see you. I laugh out loud as the sudden rush of warmth flows into me. I've missed you so much. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I have to my little sunshine. I smile at the nickname. I love you, Alto. I love you, Fayette. The line stayed open before I heard the audible click of Alto hanging up. I turned to Jasmine and Yasmin. K. Yasmin grabbed my shoulders and violently shook them as Jasmine watched, smiling. I can't believe he's coming here. In my moment of blissful happiness, I let Yasmin grab my hands and twirl me around the room, excited about the happy surprise. I ignored the pain that shot through my body, basking instead in happiness. Chapter 36, in which I try we can tell him. I stopped in my measurement to look at Yasmin. What? We know your secret now. We can tell Alto. I looked down at the instruments and thought. I felt a sudden sense of overwhelming pressure because I knew what would happen if Alto was told. He would take it away. No, I said, looking around at all the flasks that were boiling, the slow drips and herbs that were on the windowsill, and the scattered notebooks and crumpled papers that laid around the tables. No, Fayette, did you not hear me? We know that the king is forcing you to do something. If we tell Alto and show him, it technically won't be you. You won't be disobeying the king. I shook my head. I need to do this. It is I caught a sharp intake of breath and clutched my stomach as the pain bloomed. Jasmine and Yasmin stood with worried eyes, but I waved them away. I just forgot. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It pains you when you try to speak of it. I couldn't even nod, in fear that another pain would come to me. I like doing this. I want to do this. I chose my words carefully as I tried to explain that this was who I am. I was the girl who loved to work in the late hours of the night, bending over textbooks and thinking of solutions. I was the girl who was obsessed with the outcome. I loved the work and the science involved. Part of me had already acknowledged that I had not created X, been only for my father. I created it because once I started, I couldn't stop. It is not yours to tell, hoping they would understand my meaning. Fayette, we can't stand to see you like this. Yasmin and Jasmine both looked at me with sad eyes. Eyes that held pity yet at the same time determination to help me. I just have to finish. I turned back to my work. Alto said last night that he would leave in 3 days. I had time still to try to get whatever I could done. Maybe if his men reported that Jasmine and Yasmin had walked into the science building with me, he would have less suspicions. I cast an anxious eye at the window. I knew they were not allowed to come in because they did not have student tie. But the thought that there had been men raying behind me, and watching my every movement made a sudden burst of anger course through me. Though I may be Alto's life mate, I still could not understand his behavior. It was as if he and only he knew the best course of action, and everyone else was simply a distraction or did not know as best as he did. I thought back to the decisions he had made without my consent, suddenly vaguely aware of how much I had been pulled around. He had taken me to dinner in the garden. When I had asked for another place, he insisted the garden was the best. He had started training every day. Though part of me knew it was for my benefit, I hated training every day non-stop. He had pushed me to the academy. Now he had meant railing me. Yasmin, do our Rick and Derek have men watching you? I suddenly asked. Yasmin snorted. Why do you think I flirt around so much? I turned to look at her with wide eyes. There is one man who watches each of us. Pretty much every royal has a man watching them. It's standard procedure since we are vulnerable. The school can protect us, but it's always nice to be safe. She likes that our guards reports everything back to our Rick, Jasmine said, her tone laced with a faint level of disapproval. Hey, your man can't even get the reports because he's in South America. Jasmine seemed to deflate a little and sighed. I guess he thinks I wouldn't dare act out. Yasmin nodded. Derek is one scary dude. Jasmine looked down at the floor miserably. So our Rick knows you flirt around. Yasmin looked up with a wide grin. Oh yes, he knows. But why? Because I like to mess with him. They are a sick couple, Fayette, Jasmine said, shaking her head. I shook my head, still not understanding what exactly Yasmin's reasoning was. We heard Alto last night, how he thought you were cheating. Yasmin laughed at the thought. He may be a little possessive. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's nothing unusual though, Fayette, in putting men on you. It just shows that he wants you safe. Though there is also another reason for it. But the main goal is to keep you safe. I nodded slowly, still grasping with the fact that they were unfazed by it all. He means well, Jasmine said. I looked at the girls and realized that compared to their men, my man trouble seemed like small crumbs. I tried to swallow back the taste of bile within my mouth. Wasn't it enough that I was loved and adored by another? I was being too selfish and hard on Alto. I tried to resist the urge to ask if it was normal for werewolves to show such a dominating power, to try to overwhelm the room with their presence. If it was normal that you could practically see the darkness swirl around them. But I held it in. Alto was coming. My insecurities and questions would all leave my head the moment I saw him. For now, though, I had too much to worry about. Chapter 37, in which I fall if it is real. It will never be over. I stood anxiously in the lab room, pacing back and forth as Jasmine silently watched. She can do it. Jasmine's words of assurance did nothing to soothe me as I continued to glance at the door, waiting. It wasn't until an hour later, far into the night, that we heard the sound of fast approaching footsteps. Yasmin emerged, quickly opening the door before closing and locking it behind her. I got it. The relief in my chest burst like a busted dam as I sank to the ground. Jasmine's release of breath came after seeing her twin safe. Yasmin walked slowly up to me, holding out a thin flask of dark purple liquid. This is it. Nikomai. I did not know how she had done it. And by the looks in her eyes, she didn't want me to ask her. Thank you. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylin Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Gratitude welling up in my eyes as I felt small tears form. You can make it now. Jasmine's worried voice rang out to my own. Alta would be here in the morning. There wasn't time. It had run out. I shake my head, looking at the thin liquid. The twins look at each other, worry clear within their eyes. You'll want access to the labs to see where you go, Fayette. Your scent leads to this room. He'll know. They were right. I can't move anything, though. It was the truth. It had taken months for me to get everything within the right place. Any upset or balance could cause a solution or mixture to go wrong. He'll find out. That's when it started. I couldn't breathe. I felt the air leave my chest as I gasped, and then it came too fast, too sudden for me. Fayette, calm down, calm down. Their cries did nothing to soothe me as I hyperventilated with the pressure I felt. He can't find out. He can't find out. We know, Fayette. We know, but there is nothing we can do at this rate he's going to. I shook my head, new tears forming in my eyes. What would the king do? I had failed. Just as the thought enters my mind, the door crashes open. Yasmin gasps as several men step forward. Grab her. It takes the twins a split second to realize their words are directed at me. A fierce growl erupts from Yasmin as she shifts, faster than I'd ever seen from her. Her clothes instantly shredded and creature out with not hesitation. Jasmine presses herself against me, shielding me as more men come in. Several shift in their features, their wolves coming out in a violent display as they collide with Yasmin. She is a skilled warrior, and leaves one wolf injured before the others are upon her. Jasmine cries out in pain for her sister, shifting with only the one thought to defend her blood. I'm defenseless now. There are too many men in the room, pressing against us. It leaves no room for the fighting wolves as one tips near my table full of journals. However, to my shock, another wolf grabs his companion, shoving him away from my work and yelling, "Don't break any of the stuff." I scramble up, running to the window and looking out, banging against it and screaming for help. Alto's men, please see me. But instead my eyes catch on to the sight of 3 bodies hidden within the bushes, my vision only able to see them because I am directly above. I scream again from the revulsion and pain, but a hand claps over my mouth, silencing me. Shut up. My muffled cries are repressed as the man drags me to the door. I cry when I see the fallen wolves of Yasmin and Jasmine, breathing though. I see their faint breaths. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I plead silently to anyone, anything that someone will come in time to help them. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He was supposed to come in the morning, supposed to hug me, embrace me, to let me feel and see him after being away for so long. Tears stream down my face. I gag when a cloth is pressed to my mouth. Get all the stuff, be careful with it though. I swear if one drop is spilled it will be your blood instead. With those last words ringing in my ears, my world fades away. My last fading thought is a picture of Alto within my mind, looming in front, but too far to find. Chapter 38, in which I know why I cakey up PP. I feel a distortion in my body. The voice is there. But it's far away, muffled like it's being shouted down several holes. Why cakey up PP? It's being sung, almost in a sing-song sort of way. As if the person who is calling for me is happy, smiling. Like nothing would make their day more if I were to open my eyes. Wakakivia wo up PP. The cold hard jolt of pain hitting my cheek has me gasping, eyes blinking wildly and shivering as I take in the scene before me. Darkness. Darkness lit up only by the barest light as a man stands, grinning before me. Finally. What, where? I says shush a hush now, little Fayette. The man grins down at me. He is, by far, the most normal male I have ever seen. Brown hair, with matching brown eyes. There is nothing about him, not his clothing, features or stance, that is unique or that stands out. Who are you? He smiles down at me, delighted somehow by the question. That's the real question, isn't it? He walks closer, taking me in more as he flicks on several more lights. I gasp when I see my work laid out in tables before me. All my instruments and journals, unharmed and there. I make the motion to move forward, but am stopped at the cold metal I feel upon my wrist. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. We're trained here. My head flicks up, fear now running through me. Who are you? He laughs and shakes his head. I'm no one. I take a step back, pressing myself against the wall as he comes closer. I can almost feel his breath upon me. Please. The cry leaves my mouth before I can even think of what I am begging for. He pauses. You should be thanking me, little Fayette. He motions towards my work. I helped you after all. I look at him, confusion now clear in my eyes. He laughs, still shaking his head as he takes me in. Your mate would have found out, wouldn't he? And you didn't want that. I gasp. He laughs again. Is this the time when I finally get recognized for my brilliance? That's when I see something within the man's features that does stand out. His eyes that hold a crazed maniac fire within them. Look, little Fayette. He motions towards my work, bending down to pick up one of my journals as he haphazardly flips through it, tossing it aside, and discarding the object on the table. I stay silent, watching his movements, fear running cold and hard through me. Jasmine. What happened to them? The guards. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Why did you bring me here? The man pauses. I thought you were smart. He shrugs then. Shall I explain to you, little Fayette? No one has been able to catch me yet. And it's boring, truth be told, when you receive no recognition for your work, isn't it? I stare, wide-eyed at him, not daring to move, not daring to breath as he laughs, taking in my fear. Little Fayette, there are things going on that you are just upon to. My mind suddenly flashes back to the words of the king, those long months ago within his office as he stared down at his fire, warning me that there were things within the world that I had no knowledge of. Where to start? His smile leaves his face then. Who put Torna within those little twins' morning coffee? I lower my eyebrows in confusion. Jasmine. That was a drug that caused aggression. Long ago it had been used as an enhancement for wolves when fighting. Who made them attack you so your sweet little alpha would want you away from harm? My heart stopped. It couldn't be. It couldn't be real. His words were false. I had not thought of those memories. Since long ago, the real reason why I had gone to the Blue Moon ceremony. The real reason why I collided with fate and met Alto. Because on that fateful day, Anna, Lee and Estella had attacked me, unprovoked. No, the word comes out of me like I've been punched in the gut, all air leaving me. Yes, the man gleefully says back, his eyes shining even more so, in that maniac brightness. Who told Joseph you would make a good candidate for the Queen to dress to the ceremony. No, I fall to my knees, clinging to my side. now being the prince's life mate. He throws his head back and laughs. Oh, what a wonderful surprise that was. Why, it comes out strangled as I cling to my head, looking up at this monster that was hiding within the shadows all along. Oh, Faye, I have been watching you for a very long time. I am shaking now. Shaking because I never knew that the eyes of another had been on me. My mouth is open, but no words are coming out. Instead, I feel tears coming down. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I had been a pawn to something that I didn't understand. What was going on? How long? Is that what you're trying to ask? I'm numb. I can't even nod to confirm. MMNHH. Since you made Dex Bane. Did you know? It's not really in the rules for you to be demoted. You were technically a minor, so your crimes could have been pardoned. I'm sobbing now. Stop. Please stop. But I told the beta, who then told the alpha, that since you had created Dex Bane, people would start asking questions about how your father died alone by himself. So he demoted you to make it seem like you had assisted him in other ways. He's grinning, taking some pleasure as he reveals his true life work me. Nothing in my life had really happened because of me. I had been played and moved around, without even knowing it. What was freedom? What was choice? I had never known. He moves closer, bending down so he can look straight at my tear-stained face. In a surprisingly gentle manner, he takes his hand, raising my chin so he can look at me. I want to see your face, little Faye, when I tell you the rest. I shake my head, but to my surprise, growls. I make a strangled gasp. I didn't smell him to be a werewolf. He was human. So how then the ultimate truth hits me. It can't be. His feral grin rises to his lips as he looks into my face of despair. Who poisoned you at the palace, little Fayette? Who made the king fear for his wolves and the effect Agare Vane had, and who made the prince fear for your safety? I try to cover my ears, but he growls again, that sound that no human should make. Who knew the king would ask you to make a solution also to his other problem? And who knew? He leans in closer now, his breath washing over my face, that you would be assigned with the task of finding a cure to the poison that killed werewolfess, and a cure to the humans who turned themselves into such monsters that you love. I stared at this man. I had never seen him, never acknowledged his presence or that he had ever been there, but he had been there, all along. Into my pack, in the palace, at the academy, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Everywhere. He laughs as he confirms his own question, me chapter 39 in which a deal is made. It's hard to wake up from a nightmare, if you aren't even asleep. I stay numb against the wall for hours, trying to process the unraveling of my life. A lie. It had all been a lie. Because of what? Because I had created something to save my father from his mind. Because I was a lost little girl back then, desperately seeking love. Maybe. The door opens to reveal the man, still nameless. I don't move as he comes closer. He gently grabs my waist, pulling me up as he props me against the wall. Now, little Fayette. Don't give up on me just yet. I'm shaking. Shaking as he hands squeeze my waist, letting air slowly ease its way, painfully out. What do you want from me? He smiles down at me. I had to take you away before the little prince could find out. You still haven't thanked me yet for that. I don't say a word as he sighs and continues. It was very hard to wait for you. Almost 4 months in and you still had not created a single thing. He smiles then, his teeth revealing small fangs that should not have been on him. I shake my head. Why what little Fayette? Why would you? I can't even find the words. Do this? Capture you? Or do you mean turn myself? You don't know because you've never taken advantage of the power you have. You're weak. I shudder at his words. The power. He raises a hand, flexing it as small claws extend from his nails. He looks down at me and smiles. The power is something that I should not have to explain to you. I just stand there, shaking and refusing his words. All this for power. Lives have been lost. For simpler things, little Fayette. He grabs me then, pushing me roughly towards the table. Finish it. I know you were close. So do what you need to do and finish it. I stare up at him. Why would you want me to make a cure for your disease? He laughs. Is that what you call this? He bends down, shoving me into a nearby chair as he pushes me against the table, shoving my journals in front of me. Because little Fayette, this is a power game. I hold the key to power. But I also hold the key to taking it away. I stare up at the man, fear clear in my eyes. His mind had already thought 10 steps ahead of what needed to be done. I could see it then. See him offering his drug to humans who were like him, but then I could also see the threat. That he could hold over their head, the power to take away their strength. To crush the gift that he had blessed them with, the cure to their disease. This monster, how had no one noticed him before? Because he stayed hidden. Because he did not stand out, did not boast of his trade or of his victories. Instead, he stood in the corner, smiling as the world fell apart around him. Everyone none the wiser that the culprit they sought stood within the very same room. Impressed little Fayette, I nod slowly, his eyes light up at my truth. Finish it. And I just might reward you. I shudder at what he means with reward. But then I feel that small fire within me. No. He seems delighted by my defiance. I'm so glad you said that. He walks to the door, opening it and leaving it there. I glance out, seeing nothing but a black hallway. Then I hear footsteps and a scream. I feel my blood stop cold as he comes back in. A woman being pulled behind him by the hair. No, I whisper the word, but it's too late. Jasmine stares at me, her face air-stained and full of raw pain as she takes me in. Thea, she chokes the word out, relief clear in her voice. No, I know then that this man has won. Surprise. The man tugs on Jasmine's hair, letting a small snarl leave her mouth at the action. He tears chaos lightly but does not act out. Instead, he looks up at me. So little Fayette. Do we have a deal now? Where is Yasmin? My voice is desperate, pleading. Don't hurt them. Don't touch them. Please just tell me. Is Yasmin okay? He shrugs and smiles. Who knows? Jasmine opens her mouth, a cry of help or words of some plea about to leave her. I never know though, because in that moment the door slams shut, closing and trapping me inside. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.